The show is about to begin.
Hang in there, it is! Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
Featuring Smylie Kaufman.
If you're at a local IHOP at a PGA Tour event, you might see Hideki Matsuyama.
Put it up in the stance, strengthen the grip.
His co-host, Charlie Hulme.
We've now picked 5 of the last 8 winners on the PGA Tour.
Oh, just go in the hole. Please go in the hole. Please go in the hole. Please go in the hole. Yes, sir!
And the biggest names in golf.
That's a great question. Can I talk about it?
I don't think I'm ready.
How good does it get, SK?
Why not ask Charlie?
Today, live from the Pinecrest Inn, it's the Smylie Show. So long, everybody.
This is the Smylie Show.
We are back here on the Smylie Show with plenty to cover today. It is a Monday morning. Smylie's just arrived back home from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he was broadcasting the U.S. Am at Merion. And as such, we had to talk course architecture. We have things to catch up on the playoffs. We have our favorite trees in golf ranking. So look forward to that amongst other debates here. And then Smylie, would it really be an episode of our show if we didn't tease a potential live segment at the end that we're just going to see where we're at about 45 minutes to decide whether or not we cover it this week? I think I just have to, I'm contractually obliged to mention that off the top just to get us going. So how was feeling after a little late travel
good,
night,
yeah.
week of Merion?
Got in late from Philly last night. Got a couple days at home before going to St. Louis for the BMW, and then week after the Tour Championship, and the 2026 season will have a bow on it. That's pretty wild how quickly it has gone, but I am counting down the days.
ready to get home. Use the driving range a little bit more. Get some good work in there out there. I mean, fall golf is around the corner. It's tough right now. We had a very controversial debate about the month of August and why it's terrible where we live, but great other places. But once we get to September, things are looking up for us in the South for golf.
It can be very, very hot here. It's been 100 degrees in Alabama in October before. So it just depends on what type of September we get, but it won't matter. Don't care. I'll be home. All is well.
Good. Have we peeked ahead at the forecast in St. Louis for Belle Reve?
Actually, I have, and it's
Okay.
mid to high 80s, which is totally manageable.
Take it.
Fine with that
Take it.
all day long. I think we might get some weather on Thursday, so I wouldn't be surprised if they moved up tees or tee times just based off of that. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday looks awesome.
Love it. Okay, well, let's dive right into where you just were, Merion, and we're going to talk about the competition, the eventual winner, Jack Whaley, the runner-up, Jayling Jr. But this is Smylie. I've only played this course one time. Instant top 5 for me. I just want to talk about
it.
This was.
I was thinking that you hadn't played it either.
I think it was about 2 years ago. It was funny because my wife was being inducted into her high school Hall of Fame in like the Lehigh Valley. And I just so happened to have that all lined up. And a buddy said, "Hey, this is such a long shot. Do you want to come play Merion with me?" And it was the morning of her induction ceremony. So I went to her and I said, "Hey, I think if I get done right at 4 hours and I hop in that car and I go like 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, I'll get there just in time for your induction ceremony." She's like, "I'm going to kill you if you're late." And by golly, we got it all in. I loved this course so much. So many memorable holes. Booked
Who'd you
it,
play
got
with?
there in time. Buddy of mine, Rob Bressler, who is a member here at Hope Valley in Durham, and he had a friend who's a member there. And I just thought was...
There's a guy who I met. He was a Merion member, and we got to talking. He said, "Who do you do your podcast with?" I was like, "A guy named Charlie." And he's like, "I played golf with him and Charlie's dad over in, I think it was in Scotland," I think is what he was saying.
Wow. Yes.
I think y'all got paired with him, and he was like, "Well, I can get you guys out to Merion whenever you want," or something like that. And so, by the way, he says hello.
Well, I'm glad. I do remember that. Man, that's such a blast from the past. We had a great time with them. That is okay. All right, so we have a Merion date on the books. That's good. And I want to run through. There's so many holes that are memorable here. I think out of the gate, like the short par 4, kind of like a narrow green, but 5 for me is when you really start saying, "This is wild." Like that big right to left slope.
Dude, it's crazy.
I actually, when I played it there, I hit an approach. Caddy's like hit it way up there on the right, and it somehow managed to stop up there on the right. So I was playing third shot from above it down to a green. Impossible. You're just laughing the entire time. But I'm curious what your like. I think 16 approach over the quarry, one of my favorite holes in the entire world. I think the 8, 9, 10, 11 stretch up there with like one of my favorite 4-hole stretches in golf. Like maybe, I was trying to compare to other courses. 13 through 16 at North Berwick was kind of my working list. But what did you love? Because you've not played here before, and you said being on site, for the first time this week and seeing it was cool. What did you love about this course?
I love 7 to 13, so I'm going to stretch it even a couple more holes because you get to that 13th, the par 3, and then the 7th hole, which is a short little par 4. I was just amazed at I've never seen a routing quite like it. So unusual in the fact you have 2 par 5s on the golf course, which I guess isn't crazy unusual, but they happen in the first 4 holes and then they're done. And then you got,
and they're unique, right? Like the way that tee shot, the first one kind of takes you up, and when you're hitting that second one down, you have to cover that creek at the end. It's a downhill. It's just unique hole design.
Yeah, when you get over across Ardmore Avenue, the holes over there, it's 2 through 12, and I find that it's interesting in how typically when you have like a narrow strip of land to work with, you'll for the most part see just the holes run back and forth the whole time just to try to maximize the land that you have, and it never really feels like when you're out here on at least on from 2 to 12 that everything ever feels crowded, if that makes sense. For a very kind of narrow area, everything kind of works into a funnel to Cobb's Creek that's left of 5. But it's a good mix of long holes, short holes, all in this little area. And it has just the piece of land it sits on that it just kind of funnels down into left of 5. But you're kind of hitting across some holes at times. Like the 3rd hole, you're kind of hitting across the 6th hole. And back in 13, that 3rd hole, the par 3, was like 304 yards. But yeah, when you get to 7 for me, like I love short par 4s with a bunch of character. 7 and 8 and 11. 11's got so much history with Bobby Jones winning the Grand Slam on that green, but 7 and 8 are just 2 of my favorite short par 4s. And by the way, when it comes to Bobby Jones, like I'm shocked that we don't have a movie on this guy. Because I heard all about this guy's history. Like, not to say I haven't heard it before, but like really heard it every single day with like these Rolex reads. And I don't know how Disney hadn't said like, we need to make a movie about this guy.
I feel like there has to be some Bobby Jones movies out there.
Can you send them my way? I'd love to.
Bobby Jones, Stroke of Genius in 2004, starring Jim Caviezel.
So there is a movie.
I mean, I'd be stunned if there wasn't. Now, whether or not it's like a good movie, that's kind of up for debate. I've not seen Stroke of Genius, so maybe we should.
Should we write a script?
I mean, reboots are all the rage in the cinematic industry. I think we do our own take on Bobby Jones. I like this. I like where this is.
So, like when he retires at 28, should we build like this is what Bobby Jones did after retirement, and it be sci-fi, a little bit of fantasy?
I like this. A modern twist on an old tale. Coming to theaters near you. What if Bobby Jones played golf on Mars after he retired at age 28? What if we cryogenically froze him and revived him to play golf in 2090?
What if Bobby Jones tried the O.J. Simpson trial?
Maybe that's like sequel 2 or 3. Like it's like the Fast and Furious series. You pull them in with the original concept, and then you start stacking things that make less and less sense as we go forward. But you're already hooked. You can't not watch the 4th installment in the Bobby Jones series.
Yeah,
there's a lot there.
Hold on, here's something.
Okay.
What if Bobby Jones is the reason why we have the Savannah Bananas?
Ooh, that's going to be a tough one for me to stomach. I also don't know if I want to go public with my thoughts on the Savannah Bananas.
it's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
That is something I'd be interested in.
Bobby Jones goes back in time to prevent banana ball. But then some other like space-time wrinkle has to happen. If we don't have banana ball, what do we have instead of banana ball?
But
that's, I think, for us to decide.
What does the alternate universe look like without the Savannah Bananas?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It could be anything. I mean, I think that there's a lot.
You'd like to think it might be better, is what you might insinuate.
Could be worse. Could be worse.
It could be worse. It could be worse.
I think this is
have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen that show? I think it's James Franco or Dave. I don't know, the older one of the Franco brothers.
James Lake's older, isn't Dave?
I think James Franco. He was involved in like one of those time capsule shows, and it was he was tasked to go back to when Kennedy was assassinated and try to stop it. Have you ever seen that show?
I've seen. I mean, I've not seen that show, but I'm familiar with like the concept in general. Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're getting at with Bobby Jones. Yeah. Fan of bananas. It's similar type stuff here.
It's a classic butterfly effect scenario. What if Bobby Jones? What happens if Bobby Jones stops the Savannah Bananas from forming, and what happens in its stead? I guess just watch this space for a few years. See if the Smylie Show takes a hard turn off topical golf commentary.
Anyway, so back to Merion.
Back to Merion. Yeah, I mean, I think like I love.
It was great. 13's great. 14 to 18's like very, very, very like challenging. 14 to 15, tough par fours. 16, like you said, over the quarry. 17 green, I'm not in love with. It was probably my least favorite hole in the course. I thought there was some really unfair and challenging shots there, and I know that's the high debate of how greens were built back in the early 1920s versus like how it's supposed to be 100 years later with greens stepping to 13, and I just thought it was a little too much at 17, and how you could hit good shots and end up in really just like bizarre situations where you're having to chip over corners of the green. So I wasn't in love with that. I think 18 is, if you're okay with understanding that it's like a par 4.5 and it's not meant to be like a birdie hole, like it plays like a par 5 because it's a par 5 green. It's not a par 4 green. I think I saw in all of match play in we didn't, of course, not having every group go into the 18th hole. I've got groups get closed out before that. Charlie, I think I saw 2 balls end up on the green in regulation.
Wow.
2.
So, and this is a perfect segue into, as we look ahead to the 2030 U.S. Open, what the learns were for the USGA from this competition, and like, do you think things change or alter? Do you think the course gets played differently by professionals? I mean, I think the average distance for these guys can't be too much shorter than the pros, if not longer. All these young kids seemingly are the longest of the whole category. But just thinking about, because I think that there is something here, and it's been an ongoing discussion we've had on this show really this entire year. We had a little, mini discussion about Donald Ross architecture coming out of the Detroit Golf Club, the rocket there, but even going back to Aronimink and the way that course was designed and played, and how different it was than the test these pros normally expect. And so when you go to a place like Merion, I think this is something that any modern architect doing a new build or a restoration is trying to kind of wrestle with, is how much slope can I put in the greens to match modern green speeds? And if you're restoring something, is it, do you add in all the slope and undulation, but also keep it at modern speeds and just resign yourself to, we only have 2 or 3 realistic hole locations on the screen? Or do you try to kind of mute some of those slopes, maybe roll the greens, nothing more than 13?
That's what they did with the restoration project. And even with that, like, you can make a case that 17 is like a little bit like too much as far as just like the ability to hold a proper shot from 200 plus, right? That's kind of like the argument that I have of like some hole locations, like legitimately you can't play a shot to, like the front right hole location that we saw in match play. It was like, you can maybe get there with like a pitching wedge, but like guys were hitting 7 irons. It's like, okay, that, and guys really just did not know what to do. But I think back to just kind of 18, when we kind of think about how far the golf ball goes and how players are trying to create statistical advantages by hitting the ball further. And of course, watching these AMs, who just kind of bust it around and just go hit and go find it. There is kind of a beauty in how the 18th hole plays. Totally. The fact that it makes you make a decision of, okay, if you want to hit driver and you're long enough, you can probably hit it down the hill. It's probably about 305 yards, give or take, to the top. So if you hit a good drive, it'll get down the hill. But the thing is, it's so pitched in the fairway, the ball's not going to stay in the fairway. So if you're fine with gaining the advantage of getting that extra 40 yards, but playing from the rough, but with something that might be an 8 or 7 iron that you might be able to, control a little bit, not like full control from a height and spin standpoint, but like that's an option for you if you don't want to hit it to the top of the hill and have 210 yards to the front with a green that works away. Like, you have to land it literally a step short of the false front where it starts to like go the other way, or it's going to be gone. So all week I was watching guys with ball above their feet trying to hit these high cut 4 irons to try to hold the green, and they were all ending up short right because they were trying to hit this perfect golf shot. Where I'm like, guys, it's match play, it's not stroke play.
Right.
Rip this, like, hit it solid, hit it over the green, pitch back up the hill. And so I was kind of getting like, especially from 14 to 18, guys like not knowing the percentages of where to get up and down and how that it could affect you based off where your opponent is. I was driving myself nuts, like watching some of these guys make these decisions. I know they're really, really difficult shots, right? But I also know that, like, it's like, if you just put your ball here, then you're probably going to win the hole, or like you're definitely not going to lose the hole.
Well, and that's why I think this is such a perfect venue for a match play competition, because par shouldn't matter. It really is. You're just playing the guy next to you. And if 17 is unfair for you, guess what's also going to be unfair for him. I think too that, and I understand all of your thoughts on why maybe some of these holes you can have a discussion about how fair it is. But for me, I think that we're viewing like 18 strategy, like we're viewing that through the lens of, is it fair within the confines of the strategy that these players are employing, which is any stat book or any of these guys they use to kind of inform is just smash driver as long as you can, to your point, and just play it from there, because your expected strokes gain is going to be greater from shorter than it is from longer back. And
he was a big fan of the Scotch broom, where I think it was like the superintendent was not. And so
political power play here.
Yeah, but all right, so he has this vision like on the 14th fairway, and the 14th hole is this hole that kind of just gradually works up the hill, and behind the green is some of the Scotch broom that sits on the property. But you had the wicker basket of the flag. I called it the flag all week. I struggled so much not calling it a flag. Like, there's not a flag there. It's just the stick and then the wicker. Yeah, the basket. But from the fairway, you can see like just the wicker just being like above the Scotch broom. And he's like, that's it. That's the logo. And so he worked on the logo, and it came out. And then the superintendent's like, dang it. Like, now if I say I'm going to like it, then we're going to keep all the Scotch broom. So I just thought it was like a tug of war of sometimes like what the membership might prefer in plants, and what maybe a golf course superintendent's like, can we not keep this stuff? It's kind of a hindrance. I mean, not to say it is. I don't know.
It's so good. What a power play move. And once I put this in, everyone loves it. You got no choice, buddy. It's staying. The one I heard from Gary, I thought was so cool, was like, apparently that the color, like that sort of amber color, that golden color you see on the Scotch broom as depicted in the logo, it's like a very brief time of year. I think it's like shoulder season.
Yeah, I never saw any of the yellowish in it.
It's like you have to go to Merion a very specific time of year, and it gets that color, and that's when like the Scotch broom whole property really comes to life. Yeah. Wow. So it's kind of a cool,
that's like, really cool. Okay.
It's a time capsule logo, which is like, it's super cool. And if you get there during that time of year, it's like just the best. So yeah,
how many directors of golf do you think that Merion has had in their history?
Wow. They were like late 1800s, right? 1896 out there, or they were there later on. I'm trying to remember what that's actually probably incorrect. I
first number that pops in your head. Bang.
10?
6. Does that not just kind of tell you about the longevity of directors of golf there? They're just
yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I think that is it surprising? Like, not really. I mean, if I was a head pro at that place, I don't think I'd ever leave. I mean, like, you had to wheel me out here in a casket, boys. Like, this is as good as it gets. So I mean, I think it's, and I'm really curious to see, you know, again, the 2030 conversation will continue but I think that we're going to get to that US Open. There are going to be some complaints. It's going to probably, the tenor of the complaints are going to be very similar to what we heard this year to Ronamake. And my response could be, deal with the guys. Like, this is so good to watch come to life. And this week of the USAM is a little lens into that through match play. But I think that, you know, and it's going to be interesting to see how the distance conversation progresses. And there have been changes there as to the way the USGA wants to handle that in partnership with the RNA and other governing bodies. And where are we even going to be in 2030? But I just love, because I think there is a certain, you can't break a course, even if it's short, you can't break it by just overpowering it when it's set up the way that a Ronamake or a Merion is set up, you know, with some unfairness in green complexes or speeds or whatever. And I like that. I think it's like, hey, that's the defense.
I think Ronamake benefited from good spring weather. You know, it was blowing like 15 to 25 every day. And I made that place just play so much more challenging with not having a ton of rain. Greens were just firm enough. That first cut like wasn't a thing at Ronamake. That's why it was so challenging. And then the green slopes, you know, you got all the humps and bumps. That was another wrinkle of Philly and just Philadelphia golf, man. Like, holy moly. I was out at Philly Country Club with a member having dinner on Saturday night, and we sat out on the patio. I'm like, this is beautiful. Like, it just, I mean, I was just thinking with Philly Cricket, Philly Country Club, you got Merion,
the restoration of Cobb's Creek.
Yeah,
bringing Cobb's Creek back. Yeah. We took a property visit there with our good friend Erin, and she was the one who was telling us that if you hopped in a kayak, if you went left of 5 green, you took that kayak and you took it right down past, you know, down 11 on the left side of 11 there, or 10 or 11 at Merion, because 10's uphill par 4, 11's downhill par 4. And you just stuck in that kayak, it take you all the way into that site of Cobb's Creek where they're reimagining an old lost course.
It's so narrow at Merion. And it's so interesting because I was expecting to get to Merion, because we saw like kind of how widened they had made the creek at Cobb's Creek. And so I was expecting it to be much larger. It's just a very little small meandering creek in Merion. Really cool.
Such a good place.
The
Okay,
Wicker, I will say the other thing too that I must get to before we transfer to another topic. The Wicker taps of the beer is a really nice touch in the clubhouse.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Now, you want to talk about feeling like you have to hit the straightest iron shot of all time, man. Like, you can't fade it, you can't draw it. Like, if you do, you have to create an angle off the tee. I'm sure there's some better photos of this too. This was like,
I know I just grabbed the first one I get, but
I know.
I see
Sorry,
the
I know
visual.
you're live producing, but yeah. So while we're on the idea of trees creating the shot, I know Hilton Head's got a million of those, but like, for what this golf course is at Prairie Dunes, a fairly open golf course with the wind being the X factor, to get to a hole that has trees. Yeah, it's, that's why I think this hole is so unique, that you don't typically have to deal with the trees the whole round, but you're dealing with them like, so clearly a ton on this hole. So give me the shoot at Prairie Dunes.
I love it. Okay, so that's your next tree submission. So okay, are you four?
I think I'm 4 in. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm eliminating one that just came to my mind. So
okay. All right. So I'm gonna go next to, and this is, I wish I had a better image of this. I'll try to live describe it, but like 16 at Seminole, you're looking at it from the green. So if you can see my cursor here, if you're watching on YouTube, the tee box is kind of back here-ish. Like this is the par 5 15th going down this way. The green's over there, and the tee's kind of back here. So when you're looking at, and this is an older image, like these palm trees where you can push it up. The safe line is over here with a pretty straightforward approach shot in a really tough and slow green.
I'll say that, but I just spoke with Jim Wagner on Tuesday, and he had said that there's going to be a cross bunker over there now. So it's going to be a very challenging little layup now off that tee.
So, and all the more reason why every time I stand on this tee, just asking the caddy, which one of those palm trees when we try to hit it over? And just smash driver over the top as long as you can. And I always feel like it's depending on, where your round is at that point. It's like an exciting little moment of, can I carry these things all the way? Can I hit one last big drive? And I love a good palm tree, and just this grouping of, of all the different shapes that Seminole takes. Like I that's an easy visual for me, just imagining that row of palm trees on that right edge as the whole dog legs left to right at 16. I just it's a burnt into my brain. So the 16 is similar to my next set of trees that I'm proposing.
Okay, my last one, and you're very familiar with this one, 11th hole at Monterey Peninsula.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it's at just good memories of being at the AT&T. This is the tee box that we would play, and it's just that set of trees behind the green. You walk up the stairs. There's some rocks that kind of sit adjacent to this tee, and you get there, and you're like, "This might be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And if I'm not mistaken, is that spyglass in the distance, or is that cypress?
So like way out in the distance, if you're looking way out here on the peninsula, that's Cypress over there.
That's Cypress, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then Spyglass is over here, down here in this.
Spyglass kind of weaves its way into. I mean, Spyglass and Cypress, if you remember. I mean, this is imprecise, but remember, like that the par 3 third hole at Spy.
That's right there.
It's kind of coming down the hill, like right over here. You're like looking across. I mean, this is imprecise, but like that's generally looking at the peninsula. It's amazing that you have this view. And I'm going to get killed for not knowing this, but I think it's a shore. They also have 14 at Dunes, way out on the ocean, where you have to cross a 17-mile drive to hit that shot on the ocean.
That was my first time seeing that hole this year.
It's so good, man. This place.
Yeah, I never played the Dunes, but so this, from a tree standpoint, the way it frames the back of the screen. So I've had like a decent mix of trees that you've had to maneuver and play through, with whether it be the Merion tree or the tree at Sawgrass. This is kind of like my favorite visual tree that frames the hole. And then you have let's see, what was the other one that I did? Whatever. Yeah. Anyways,
we're getting lost in the trees, metaphorically and literally. Yeah, I like that, because that's kind of how I feel about like that fourth tee box at Pamir. It's not necessarily in play. It's just sort of a feeling that it gives you when you're up there on the tee box. I think, listen, as someone who didn't compete competitively in golf, that was good word choice there, just that competitively twice in a row there. But as someone who did not play high level golf, you played in the final group of the Masters, you won on tour. As someone who was a spectator first and foremost, I can't do this list without naming the tree at Augusta National Golf Club, the meeting point. If you go to the Masters and you can't take your phone in, and you're trying to meet up with your friends or someone else in the business world, whatever it is, it's very simple. You just bring an index card or a notebook and a wristwatch. It's like, all right,
it's a great finish.
I'm going to get lunch at noon, and 1:15 at the tree. Meet me up there. And it is the tree.
Good call. That's a good call. That's a fantastic tree. My honorable mention, Wailea. The 16th hole. Wailea. Yeah. Wailea. We're already leaving we leave there from the PGA Tour, and now I can't even pronounce the name of the dang place. Wailea. So that would be an honorable mention. The other honorable mention, still in Hawaii, is now these are entering trees that have been removed. It's been my screensaver for forever. This is the 7th hole at Kapalua.
With apologies to your children.
It's not there anymore. I don't know how you sit there and cut this tree down. It's not there anymore. So pay your respects if you're ever playing Kapalua and you look over there to the right. That tree used to frame just that beautiful Pacific Ocean in the background. And then on the other note of trees that are no longer there, which you can do a long list of trees that have been cut down that probably shouldn't have, the Eisenhower tree at Augusta National. Yeah. I think that's one that is pretty quick to come to mind for a strategic tree that
that
was
was
no
a storm,
there.
Right? Wasn't that the storm a couple years back? That wasn't a
I'm saying that's no longer there.
Got it. Yeah. I thought you were saying the ones that they'd chosen to pull. And who knows? I don't know the story on the backstory on the one at Kapalua, but they've had that whole water thing going on. Maybe they couldn't keep the tree alive. Who knows?
Don't know.
This has been Talking Trees with on the Smylie Show. So hope you enjoyed that segment. And All right, so we're late in this show, Smylie, but we have some stuff to get in. I mean, do you want to give us any quick thoughts to kind of wrap USAM on guys that you saw that kind of really made a difference for you? We have Walker Cup teams. We can kind of get into that closer to September, but obviously Jack Whaley, Jay Lane Jr., or any other names that you felt like, man, as we're identifying young talent, we're seeing a ton of these guys make an impact immediately on tour this year. Keep an eye out for this guy.
Yeah, top two guys I want to have a beer with currently are currently now amateurs, Ryder Cowan and Carter Laughlin, two just Southern boys that
Laughlin, tour visor guy. Love that.
Laughlin, he's got the Ray-Bans going above the tour visor, and he's had flip-flops going on in his press conference. This was just a dude who's just a good old Southern boy. Ryder Cowan also just feels like he's kind of that Sam Burns cut of puts the clubs away and probably is going to go duck hunting in off season. So I like the vibe of those two dudes. I like the way they swing the club. It actually Cowan does it kind of different. He's very gutter up and he's set up way left and hits it straight, very straight. Lang Jr.'s wild, man. Like seriously, some of the wildest action. I'm curious to see how it, if this is something that he's going to be able to maintain forever, just with how unique and unorthodox it is. I love how he's able to hit a bunch of different shots and change trajectories, but holy moly, it's wild to watch. It is an experience watching him like he's moving all over the place. Even when he putts, he's like moving forward. There's some like cool matchups that he does to like make it all work, but it's just not something that you would teach. And potentially the future Hideki Matsuyama with how he hits bad shots and they end up going to 5 feet.
That's we need air.
Yeah,
we need an air to that throw.
Because I was thinking, I was like, you got like one of the most iconic photos of all time that happened at Merion with Ben Hogan posing on that shot at the 18th hole. Needing to do something magical to make a playoff. And I was just thinking, like, if we get Lang Jr. on the 18th hole and in that moment, it is going to look, he's going to have the club like on the ground. He's going to be like tilted this way. And it's going to be like the least, attractive photo as far as just like the aesthetic goes compared to the Ben Hogan, just picturesque photo.
FedEx St. Jude, and our winner this week, Scottie Scheffler, who sometimes the swing looks unconventional, lots of moving around, but boy, does this guy play good golf and win golf tournaments. And golly, I mean, it's so interesting to look at this year. I know we've done this at various intervals, but year to date now, I just feel like we need to do another checkup. 18 starts, 1 miscut, 2 wins, 5 runner-ups, 12 top 5. Smylie, what that means is 67%, 2/3 of his starts this year are top 5s or better. And then if you go back and look at just some stat categories that Scottie leads in this year currently: scoring average, birdie average, final round scoring average, strokes gained total, strokes gained tee to green, green to regulation percentage, scrambling, and total money. And then if you delve into putting, this one's super interesting to me, given the journey we've been on with him and his changes in putting and how much better he is at it now. Just came off statistically that last round Sunday in Memphis, one of his best rounds ever to lap the field. He is 3rd in strokes gained putting for the season, which sounds insane to kind of read out loud. 1st in putting from more than 25 feet, 4th in putting from 10 to 15 feet. So just leaps and bounds of improvement there from we're asking, should he go to a broomstick, all these sorts of things a couple years ago, completely different player. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but my prediction is he's going to win all 3 playoff events. You like that one? You going to ride with me on that one?
That's a good way to be right now. I think that's a safe place to live. And that's bold of you, coming off an 8-shot win.
It's really going out on a limb there. I just had to do something too, because I think my prediction before last year was he's going to win 10 times. I almost got laughed off the show, and I need to get that one back. All right, well, let me ask you this: let's say he does win the next 2 weeks, 4 wins on the season, none of them a major, didn't win the Players. I just read you all the stat categories he leads in. Is this your Player of the Year?
Yeah.
If he wins 2 of the last 3 playoff events, your Player of the Year.
Yes, 100%. He really just needed to win once in my mind. Like, you just couldn't have your one win being the Amex. Cam Young in my mind still has like the strongest resume, but he's had moments this year of inconsistency. Like, it's insane to look at that record that Scottie's had this year. The putting, like the statistics that you just mentioned, being 3rd in putting for what has been kind of an off iron year for him. Dude, like, what happens if he has the putting working with a lethal iron game that he typically leads in every single year? I mean, we're like, when will he not be number 1 in the world? Like, when you look at the OWGR right now, 2nd in the world ranking, they got to double their amount of like world ranking points to be able to get to Scottie, and it still isn't enough. His lead is going to be something that I think ultimately surpasses Tiger's lead as the longest number 1 in the world. I truly believe that it's not slowing down anytime soon. Injuries is the only thing. Like, once he solved the putting, he's too good of a pitcher of the golf ball. His golf swing is and his ability to maintain that. It's been proven that it's something that shows up every week. 8-shot win is, when you're kind of looking for, when you're trying to put together like a Player of the Year argument, I think showing up and dominating and having the best putting week of his career, I think, to me, it almost closes the door, right? If Fitzy or Goddard or Cam Young go out and win maybe BMW and Tour Championship or whatever it is, like, then you can start maybe kind of playing that argument. But if none of those guys win over the next 2 weeks, Scottie's going to win this thing, like, right? It's not even a question.
I mean, it's funny because it really does trace the discussion we're having traces back to the one where you were sitting on and the chairs on the 18th green at the Open Championship, having a sort of slightly fun debate, but there was some needling happening between Brandel Chambly and Paul McGinley about like, what is the Player of the Year supposed to be representative of? And, I hate to get so far into the world of stats and all these things of, like, I wouldn't be handing Scottie Scheffler the best, the Player of the Year award based on stats alone. But I do think in terms of results, it's what sort of conversations you want to have about how much is a win worth compared to top 5ing 12 times and 18 starts. I mean, that is amazing, especially when you consider maybe a quarter or a third of those were weeks when he showed up and just gave you a stinker on Thursday and was fighting an uphill battle the rest of the week, early on in the season. So, I mean, I think it's never been at least in the past however many years where Scottie's been the favorite going away. It's a lot closer because of the caliber of wins that other guys who have won majors and won multiple times have. But I think in some ways he's helped by the fact that
the major cycle winners, it's Ryan Fox, right?
Ryan Fox and Rory didn't hardly play at all on the PGA Tour this year, or basically played the minimum amount of events. And Wyndham got hot kind of midseason with that win at Byron, right? And then goes on to win the U.S. Open. But it's like he's almost helped in that sense.
Totally. And I think Fitzy's probably has the best case potentially, even though his major season was really poor. It wasn't, it wasn't anywhere close to what we saw, with his second place and then the wins that he had kind of in that early middle part of the season. But even Chris Gotterup, who's, he had pretty big moments winning at Sony, Phoenix Open, John Deere. 3 wins is a lot, but like his major season, like his best finish was a T10, right? And when you look at Scottie Scheffler's, right? Like, come on. I mean, I know he didn't win, but he had 2 fourth place finishes, and he also had a second place at the Masters, and his worst finish was a T14. It's and then you look at all the runner-ups that he had, and there's a little bit of like win luck component to all of this, right? Like sometimes it's hard to win events. Like sometimes guys pull away that you don't expect to, just have that day. And Scottie kind of finally put, this was his day to go out and close the door. And I wouldn't say that through the course of the year that he had days that, man, he just is like choking on Sundays, right? It didn't feel that way in my mind. It's just like other guys played well. He played fine, just like not quite good enough. And I think if he had a better scoring average just on his Thursdays through the first quarter of the year, like what does his season look like with even with how he finished, which is insane to think about. But like he was terrible on Thursdays to start the year.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
World Tour relative to Challenger, and what are the pathways for each of those different tours. And so if you're telling me it's like, if I stay here, top 3 get championship cards and 7 get, okay, but if I play on this tour, 20 get cards maybe, or 30. Like it's a math game. You probably got to do some analysis. Also,
totally.
Like relative strength
what it
of
would
field.
come down to. That's what it would come down to.
I wouldn't hate mixing those 2 tours in a way that would.
Me too.
Make it. I mean, you talk about they're all going to the same place, right? They all want to go to the championship series. So like it would seem to make sense to kind of try and mix those up a little bit.
I kind of see from a talent standpoint, those tours being in similar places.
I agree.
And the purses can be fairly similar. The one purses that they're the Challenger Series, there's going to be those 7 events that are going to be on network television. And those are the ones that are potentially being valued at 10 to 15 million. So let's say you had the top 10 on the DP World Tour would be exempt into the Challenger Series network events, the 7 ones that are available. I think that would also add to just an influx of European players, gets them in a more visibility playing on our PGA Tour and network coverage. So that's something I think if they were able to mix it, and then the fall too, for vice versa for the PGA Tour players on the Challenger side, like if they can go play in the fall, right? And in some of these amazing events they have over there, maybe not the BMW series, but plenty of great events that they have. The Irish Open comes to mind as a great event, and plenty of other great national opens.
All right, here's where we got to close. You mentioned Bobby Mack. Cannot wait to drop that episode this week. You see it on Golf Channel, on our YouTube, on podcast platforms. Really cool to like get inside his brain, while we also are apologizing for, the Smylie Show bump works most of the time, not all the time. And this is one of the times it backfired a little bit. But with that out there, all right, a little bit of struggle for him this week. Rory struggled a little bit this week. And I'm just kind of looking forward. Do we need to be trying to move the 2029 Ryder Cup to TPC Southwind? We had some tweets about this, some suggestions. Do we need to take the Ryder Cup to the South? I'm just putting it out there as a topic for debate.
Gosh, I mean, we do pretty well in Bermuda.
Or how about imagine this, all right? Just pick a place where there's a venue of some degree of quality in a town or a city where on the same weekend as the Ryder Cup, there's a massive SEC matchup. And you've got like bewildered Euros like wandering to the course, and there's some guy wearing jort overalls who's been cooking a pig all night long. Yeah. That's, I think, part of the home field advantage we need. Like, let's mix up the Ryder Cup and SEC football, take this thing to the South, really make it a home field advantage. That's my TED Talk for the week.
I don't know if that would help the problems that we've been having in the game from a behavioral standpoint. But
that's fair. That's fair.
Actually, that might make it a little worse.
Well, I mean, I think the argument is the SEC fans aren't going into the Ryder Cup. They're just kind of there to warm up those fans and then just go in and watch football. But it's just, put a pin in that one. We're going to keep that one working. Wow. Long one this week.
The only other thing I can mention is that, with Rory, he obviously didn't have a great week. We clearly all saw he didn't do much practicing last week being in Ibiza. And if you listen to our episode with Justin Thomas, this was back earlier this year. We talked about his win at Firestone, the win after the Jordan bachelor party, right? And he called it his best event, maybe the best he's ever played in his life, coming off of a bachelor party. And maybe it's just as older we get, we're just not quite built for it. And I don't know if JT would be able to do it now, but he was able to do it then. And so I think it puts into context how great that win was from JT at Firestone, where he dominated the field. And I can't imagine going from Ibiza and playing in Memphis in 100-degree weather and trying to find your game around a golf course that typically has the most penalized golf balls that end up in the hazard. So seems like a nightmare in my mind. I'm sure it wasn't for Rory, but also you got to tip your cap to JT for getting the job done and getting a win post Ibiza.
That's a heck of an Ibiza flu game for him. Although I am almost positive that now that he has kids and he's older, this is maybe wouldn't have been the same outcome. But young JT,
no, he wouldn't have played.
That's his wheelhouse. He wouldn't have played.
He wouldn't have played.
Fantastic. Well, that's what we got for you for the show this week. And as mentioned, tune in for Bob Mack later this week. It's a great one. And then we have Smylie in St. Louis to give us some notes on Bellerive before we head to the Tour Championship. So
right.
as always, we appreciate y'all hanging with us, watching and listening. Talk to you right back here very, very soon as we head deeper into the FedEx Cup playoffs.
We'll see you next week on the Golf Channel. This has been The Smylie Show.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our lovely fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people at YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the